Hello, my queens. Hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another episode. This episode is based on a listener's question, and the question is, Hi Victoria, can you share your thoughts and opinion about the all-in method and or Stephanie Buttermore's journey? Thank you. And so the title of this podcast is What I Think About the All-in Method. So there's only one way that I work with my clients, and that is going all in. And let me explain why, because when we go all in, and going all in, just to clarify, by the way, is breaking every single food rule that you have set for yourself and body image rule that is born or has been born from fear. And so it can be very scary to go all in because it almost feels so overwhelming. Like, how the hell can you possibly break all the rules that you set for yourself around food and body image that perhaps you've been following for many, many years? But the thing is, it's the fast track way to food freedom and body love, because taking it slower, because I'm not saying like any other method is wrong per se, but what I am saying is, when I say to people that interview me, I have it written on my website, when I say I have tried everything to heal my relationship with food and my body, I even tried the like slower method, which a lot of coaches offer and work with clients, and if that works for them, great, but it didn't work with me either, because what happens is, when you allow yourself to take the slow way, and I'm going to explain the difference between panic zone and stretch zone in a moment, because that's really key and important here. But if we were only to introduce fear foods one at a time, or take it really slow until you feel comfortable eating something or doing something that's outside of your comfort zone, and then you're ready to introduce something back in, what that's doing is it's still fueling the fire of fear. It's still feeding the other rules that you have for yourself. So even though you might be breaking one or two rules at a time over a course of a few days or weeks or even months until you're ready to then break the next rule, every single rule you follow in the meantime is only perpetuating the fear. And so an example in real life could be, let's say you are scared of Nutella or chocolate. I mean, those of you that know me, I always talk about chocolate and Nutella, because they were like my huge fear foods that I used to binge my face off on and hide the wrappers and hide it all and be shameful and all of that, which I know many of you know the feeling of how that feels. And this is obviously after my anorexia. So I know I have a lot more listeners who are in an anorexia restrictive eating disorder. Although, however, and I'm going to do another episode about this, binge eating disorder is also a restrictive eating disorder. I have never met anyone in my life who binge eats who doesn't also restrict, either physically or emotionally and mentally in their head. But that's like another thing. But either way, those of you that are listening to this or watching this have fear around gaining weight and getting your food wrong. So whatever extremity your fear shows up in for your own life, you all have fear around this. So let's say you were to introduce Nutella. So you were to introduce Nutella into your porridge in the morning, perhaps have it on toast, because hoping like you're introducing that into your everyday foods, which is a great idea, by the way. And this is something that I encourage. But let's say you only do that. But let's say you still only allow yourself to eat after 11 o'clock in the morning and not allowed to eat after 7 o'clock at night, or some other food rule, like when you're allowing yourself to have Nutella instead of in a binge out the jar, like I used to microwave it and then drink it. If you're allowing yourself to have Nutella on toast or Nutella in your porridge, but only allowing yourself to do that in set days of the week, any kind of food rule that is born from fear is still perpetuating the fearful cycle, even though you're still breaking one rule at a time. You can absolutely get there. It's like I actually explained to one of my amazing clients this morning on one of our calls. I said, imagine recovery or food freedom, however you want to call it. Like I speak about food freedom a lot. Imagine food freedom is like a ride in a theme. It's a theme park. So you've got a long line in England, we call it a queue. don't know why we call it a queue and Americans call it a line. Either way, you've got this long line to get on this ride called Food Freedom, which is a ride of a lifetime, right? You never get off it. And you've got one line that is, let's say, 3 to 4 hours long. And to wait in this line, it's like a ball ache. And then it seems like it gets longer because you've been waiting an hour, but the queue feels like it's even bigger because maybe people are pushing in or whatever it is. You're in the line, you're going to get on that ride eventually, but it's a low, slong, hard process, especially if you don't like boredom, which I don't. And most people that I work with don't like boredom either. Who likes boredom? But there you go. On the other hand, you've got a fast track queue or line that you have to pay money for. But it's fast track. So instead of the line being 3 to 4 hours long, the line is 40 minutes long, or at the most an hour long, right? And so ultimately, both lines end up on this ride of life called food freedom and body love. So do you want to go about it the slow, long, treacherous, boring way? Or do you want to go through the short line, pay money for it, and perhaps like, I don't know, have to queue in the rain or something that else is challenging, but you get on this ride earlier and quicker and you spend less time standing and struggling in the line. So that's kind of like one of Victoria's roundabout way of explaining the freedom is there. How do you want to get there? Because if you've made a decision to do it anyway, going for the longer route is actually going to perpetuate the fear cycles in your brain. It's going to take you a lot longer. It's going to be a lot harder. Whereas if you go all in, it's extremely scary, but it's the fast track to food freedom. It's like another way I've written down to share with you the rule thing, like breaking all the rules in terms of like your food freedom journey. Imagine that you had OCD and I had OCD in my anorexia, but imagine you had OCD and two of the many things that you did was one was perhaps, and this is literally what my fiance used to do, so this is like a real-time example, he doesn't do it anymore. One thing that he used to do was check the door was locked. I mean, he would only go back and double check it, even though he'd seen me lock it. But someone with OCD would perhaps check the door 10 times to make sure it's locked until they can get on with their day. And let's say another one of this person's behaviors is to check the handbrake is on in the car. And so you've parked the car wherever you go into, and then you have to walk back to the car 10 times to check that the handbrake is pulled up on the car, right? Imagine if you were saying to yourself, right, I want to stop this OCD that is like ruling my life. You've got support, whatever it may be, and you decide to stop checking the handbrake, but you still allow the OCD behavior of checking that the door is locked 10 times. You may get over the one fear of checking the handbrake, but if you're still doing it with the door, your life's not really got much better. It's got a bit better, but you're still doing the same behavior, just somewhere else. Can you see how that is? So with food, any rule, and this is why I invite you to get pen and paper or on your laptop or phone or whatever, and write down all the obvious restriction behaviors that you do, and then write down the sneaky restrictive behaviors that you do. And you may need a coach or support to find the sneaky ones which can hold you back, which is why I do what I do, because so many of us, even those of us that are most aware, we don't actually know what's really going on. It takes someone to be a mirror and a professional to have been there and be like, think that behavior is like that's born from fear, diet culture, and the eating disorder. And then you can work through that together. So going all in is scary as fuck, I'm not going to lie. It's also very exciting and very liberating, because especially if you're working with someone who you trust and who has been there before, when they say to you, you can eat whatever you want when you want, and that's okay, and trust me and trust the process, because you feel like you've got support because you have, and you're not like completely on your own. It's kind of like exciting, because it's like, oh my God, am I really doing this? And then, of course, you have the fear of weight gain and all of that, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But it's very exciting, but it can also be very scary. But the key thing here is when you break all your rules all together, you're running into your fear. And so fear only works, quote, works, when you're running away from it. So if you run towards your fear, if you run towards your fear instead of away from it, what happens is the fear turns into courage. So just say that again. Fear only works when you're running away from the fear. Fear turns into courage when you turn to that fear and you say to yourself, you know what, fuck this. That was a thing that I used to say to myself a lot in recovery when I felt all the heaviness and the anxiety and the fear. I'd literally be like, fuck this, and just do it anyway, right? It does take a lot of determination and courage, but the more you do that and run into the fear, it comes into courage. And then you're literally smashing through all these fearful rules that you had for yourself. You don't die when you break them. In the beginning, you will feel guilt and shame and remorse and think you've done something wrong, and you'll feel a little bit liberated at the same time. That's when you reach out to me or a coach or a professional that you're working with. And then over time, the difficult emotions go away, and all you're left with is like liberation and freedom. And so it is running into your fears. And the faster you run into your fears, the quicker they'll go and the quicker you'll be living in food freedom. Now, I did mention a little while ago about the zones. So and I'm going to show you this. Let me just see my own face because I can't see myself. There I am. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, I will pop this in, well, I can't pop it in the show notes because it's an image, but I will put it on my website and I'll put the link in the show notes. But this wonderful diagram that I created by myself 2 minutes before this episode is what I like to call the zones of comfort, stretch, and panic. So as you can see, you've got your comfort zone, which is, my camera's mirrored, so that's this way here. And then you've got your stretch zone, and then you've got your panic zone. When I work with clients and in the all-in method, no matter where you are on your journey, no matter whether your stretch zone is someone else's panic zone or vice versa, we're still taking the same action. We're still going all in with you together. So I have you working first of all at number 2, which is in your stretch zone. So we start close to your comfort zone there, and we very quickly move to the middle of your stretch zone and then close to your panic zone, but not in the panic zone. Because what happens is, and this is why everyone is different, let's say someone who is struggling with anorexia and they've had this for 25 years, and then I'm there like, throw all the cutlery away that you use. For example, I used to use like teaspoons and like children's cutlery to eat from. You're going to eat every single one of your fear foods that you've not eaten for 20 years today in ample amount, and then you're going to send me a photo, right? That is going all in. But if that is in the person's panic zone where they do not know how to feel and process the overwhelming amount of emotion that they feel and fear doing those scary actions, if it's in the panic zone, it's not really going to help them, because your brain needs proof that it's safe and okay to do scary things with nothing bad happening. If you're in your panic zone and you feel overwhelmed, it might re-traumatize you and then send you back. So that's why working with a professional is important. But at the same time, I am pushing you lovingly to leave your comfort zone. When you work with me, and hopefully other coaches as well, you ain't spending much time in your comfort zone, right? And you don't want to be, because if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I mean that. And so you actually get used to liking the feeling of being outside of your comfort zone. I like the feeling of being uncomfortable because I know I'm going to grow. And I also know that the worst that can happen is it will go wrong and I'll try again and then I'll learn something. So this is why, again, support is really important. But the all-in method is exactly what I work with my clients, because as I said before, it's the fastest way, it's the fast track way to fully recover and to live in food freedom. And so now I want to talk about neuropathways. So when we think a thought, or when we've been doing actions and behaviors for many years, our brain, because our brain is an organ, right? So our brain is like our heart, like our kidney. It's an organ. Your mind is not an organ. Your mind is the conscious part of you that tells your brain what to think and then therefore what to do. So let's say for 20 years, because of diet culture, because of your family, because of all your conditioning, you've taught your brain to be scared of weight gain, because we're born into this. Like, it's like fat phobia is like a virus that every single one in the world has caught. You can get rid of it, but you have to be aware of it and get support and go through that. And you have to want to get rid of the virus, right? And so if you've been teaching your brain, it's not your fault, it's not society's fault, although in a way it is, it is what it is. That's the dogma that we're living in. And just to be clear, dogma is living in the results of other people's thinking. So how about living in the results of how you choose to think, right? So when you've been training your brain for 20 or more years, or however many years, to fear weight gain and therefore to fear foods and all of that, your brain is noticing you thinking over and over again, can't eat that, feel bad about that, scared of getting bigger, all of that. Your brain is wired that way. And so when your brain's wired that way, because it's a good little slave, it's an organ doing its job, listening to what you want it to do, it creates it as an automatic habitual behavior for you. So you don't have to keep consciously thinking it over and over again. It's like, here you go, I'm doing this for you. My human must want to fear weight gain because she keeps thinking about it and taking action as if she is scared of weight gain, and she's done this since as far as she can remember. And so therefore I'll create everything, every emotion, every thought to make her scared of weight gain because that's what she wants. I'm helping my human. That's what your brain thinks as an organ, right? And so the good news is that you can retrain your brain not to be scared of weight gain. Sounds like I'm going to either sing or do a poem. You can train your brain not to be scared of weight gain. And that is the truth. And it's difficult because what you're having to do is make and fire together new neural pathways by choosing, and this is where the effort comes in, choosing to think new thoughts. And this is the biggest key here, and taking action as if you believe the new thoughts that you're thinking. And that's why, again, support is key because it can be very scary. So let me give you an example of this. So let's say I have something in my eye, which isn't the example, but let's say for 20 odd years, you have, oh God, I've got tons of examples. Let me choose one for myself. Let's say for 20, I'm just doing myself as an example. Let's say for 20 years, you've either only eaten chocolate at the weekend or only eaten chocolate when you're off the diet, or only eating chocolate when you're on holiday, or whatever excuse you find to eat chocolate. If you do that and then shame yourself for eating chocolate in the week or eating chocolate when you're meant to be on a diet, your brain over time makes it even harder for you to eat chocolate in the week, or when it's not a weekend, or when it's not a holiday, because it thinks you want to only do that behavior because you're petrified of the weight gain or the bad food or the bad health or whatever comes from that. And so it's wired then. It's your habitual behavior. It's your immediate response. Eat chocolate on a Wednesday, feel bad. Eat chocolate when you're on a diet, feel bad. By the way, don't diet. That's like the key thing here, but just as an example. So imagine then if you decide you want food freedom, and I'm there like Victoria going, hey, you can eat chocolate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of the freaking week if you want to. And your brain's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That's not safe to believe that, because for 20 years, I've been acting as if I am scared of chocolate unless it's in this set allowed window, right? And so when you take the action towards not being scared of eating chocolate, for example, eating it on a Monday, on a Wednesday, like whenever you want it, if you keep taking that action and reaching out when you need support, when the overwhelming guilt sets in, and that's what I'm here for, then you're training your brain not to be scared of chocolate or weight gain anymore. And then over time, because there's two key words here to have this happen for you, consistency and repetition with the action. So with the thoughts and the actions, all you need is consistency and repetition, and the support and the accountability to be able to do the consistent repetition. And then you will literally rewire your physical brain and your beliefs and everything that comes with that. There is some trauma work and emotional release to help you to change your beliefs, which is what we work on together. You will rewire your brain. So then you will no longer be scared of chocolate or weight gain or eating at 9 o'clock if you've only ever allowed yourself to eat past 11 because of some bullshit diet rule you've heard or made up for yourself, right? So you can change this for yourself. The thing is, though, and this is a really interesting part, and this is why it can be very difficult and very challenging, but also possible, and there's more and more of us in the world if you look for us, it's like the whole, I mentioned before that the world has caught a virus called fat phobia, fear of fatness. Everyone's got it. And the only way you get rid of it is if you don't want it anymore. You become conscious that you have got the virus, number one. And number two is you decide you don't want it anymore and you don't want to live with this virus because it's restricting. It makes you hate yourself. You feel like you failed, all the things, and you can't enjoy the food you want to enjoy. So if you overcome your fear of weight gain, or as you're overcoming it, therefore rewiring your brain, facing your fears, running into your fears and turning that into courage, starting to rewire your brain not to be scared of weight gain, and you're feeling pretty good, and you go out into society, into the real world. Imagine this, it makes more sense to explain it this way. Imagine that you're getting over your fear of snakes, and you're at a really good place, and you kind of like, right, I've rewired my brain, like I've touched loads of snakes. I'm feeling quite strong in getting over my fear of snakes. And then you're in the world and you're in a shop and you go to like touch a snake, and then everyone around you is like, oh my God, don't touch that, it will kill you. Don't touch the snake, it will kill you. And everyone else is scared of snakes. That is literally like going to a cafe and choosing a hot chocolate with cream and marshmallows and a flake and a rocky road just because you want to, and the person who you're with being like, oh, I wish I could eat that, that's too many calories, or whatever someone says around you, or just the world in general. A billboard you might walk past as you've just enjoyed this delicious treat of hot chocolate and rocky road, and then you walk past this diet advertisement about how sugar's going to kill you or something ridiculous. That is like society saying that snake's going to kill you when you've got over your fear of snakes. And so it is societal. That's why the fear of weight gain is ingrained in each and every one of us, even if we don't have an eating disorder, even if we haven't experienced an eating disorder, but you can overcome your fear completely. I never thought the words, I am no longer scared of weight gain, would come out of my mouth. Literally, ever, 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 ever. And I'm not. And this is what I want for you too. So I want you to write down your food rules, your food restrictions, and other sneaky restrictions. Like, it wasn't that long ago, literally, I'm talking a couple of months. I mean, I've been in food freedom for years now, and I teach this shit. And I'm standing up now because I feel like I genuinely want to. But I always stood up when I coach clients. And then a couple of weeks ago, I actually blacked out when I was on a call with a client, bless her heart. I don't know what it was. The hospital didn't know what it was. I'd eaten, I'd taken care of myself. Random. I think it was a spiritual encounter, but that's another story. And then since that, like a few weeks ago, it was only a few weeks ago, actually, not a few months ago, I questioned, why do I stand up when I coach? And then the answers I got was, I like it. I feel more empowered and like more of service, which I do. I feel more energetic when I stand up. I have a mat that I stand on as well to protect my knees and all of that. But then I thought, what else is there that's like encouraging me to stand up when I coach? Because sometimes I have stood up when I really wanted to sit down, but then my answer from my brain was, well, you always stand up. So I'm like, yeah, I always stand up when I coach, it's fine, I'll sit down afterwards. But then if I really got honest with myself, that is such an old habitual eating disorder behavior from my anorexia that long ago, where it's not compulsive anymore, but it was almost like I wasn't aware of it. So now when I coach, I purposely, because I'm rewiring my brain now, purposely sit down when I coach, because I'm in more of a receiving, gentle, space holding energy when I coach anyway. Now I'm kind of like, I'm teaching, I'm giving information. So it really genuinely feels good for me to stand. But when I coach, I sit down now, and they can be so sneaky. That's the thing. And then I used to choose my jobs in the past. I mean, I've always worked with horses, to be honest, but even when I was like in between jobs when I was younger, so I was out of the anorexia, but I was in like the other eating disorders, like the binge eating, the bulimia, I would unknowingly, so unconsciously, but this was driven by fear and by the eating disorder, choose jobs where I was walking all day or being active all day, because the thought of sitting down, I said it would be boring, but it was ultimately, I was scared not to move my body and burn calories. So it can be so restrictive. So get honest, brutally honest with yourself, and take a look at where you are restricting. It can be body movement, it can be rule as in timings of food, it can be the cutlery you eat with, it can be anything, like absolutely anything. Just get honest with yourself and write that down. And I want to give you an example when I've had a bit of water, because I'm going to talk about water now. When you go all in, the biggest fear is eating and never stopping, and weight gain, right? I'm not going to go into depth in weight gain because I've done like a lot of podcasts and YouTube episodes before about the fear of weight gain and how you can overcome that. But it's similar and different strategies and action steps and all of that to do with taking the action against what the fear is telling you to do. And then you become courageous, you realize you don't die, you realize you can actually have a good time, and you realize that if you do put weight on, it's not the end of the world. You don't look like an actual monster, you're still you, but you're also living in food freedom and all of that. And I want to bring set point weight into it, and I'm going to wait for the end to do that. But you imagine going all in, and for me it was chocolate, like no word of a lie. You've heard me talk about this before if you followed me for a while. When I went all in, I was eating chocolate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like, I would say months, with very little different to eat. And now there's a few reasons for that. One, because of all the traumatic dieting and restriction I'd done in the past on chocolate, with chocolate, my body needed to feel safe that it was never going to be restricted again. And I didn't know what emotional restriction was back then. I now do. So then there's like another key factor to this. It's not just physically allowing yourself to have it. There's another factor that comes into this. But if you imagine that you're in a desert, because this is your fear of eating whatever food and never stopping and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Imagine that you're in a desert and you've got no water, and you're literally about to die, because Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base of human needs is oxygen, water, and food, right? That is at the base of the human needs. And so you're in a desert, you've got no water, you're literally almost going to die. Like your lips are shriveling up, and I don't even know what happens when you go dehydrated and about to die, but you've seen it in movies. Imagine that's you, right? And then all of a sudden you're like crawling around, I'm being dramatic here, like rolling around on the desert sand, and you're like, oh, I'm going to die. And you say your prayers and whatever. And all of a sudden you see this mirage, shock, because that's what people see in a desert. I wonder why they see a mirage, because isn't a mirage looking like water? And that's your fantasy desperation. You need water. So you're just like trying to search for and look for water. But this time it's real. So you see this mirage. Is a mirage real? Anyway, this mirage is real. And you start crawling to it. And then you see that it's this like, not an ocean, because you can't drink salt water, this like gigantic pool of fresh, clean water. You wouldn't even give a shit if it was clean, but in this scenario, it's clean. Can you imagine what you would do? You would literally, well, I would fall into the water. I would literally put myself in the water and drink it and be in the water and immerse myself in the water, because I need it all around me. I'm so scared of that it's not going to be there. I need it. It's like my life source. You would drink a lot of water. You would gulp the water so fast you could hardly breathe, right? And then when you're so full of water you can't take it anymore, you would still be in the water just in case, because you literally just nearly died. And then if you got rescued from this desert, you perhaps might drink a lot more water at home for a long time, or at least have water in your eyes view, have bottles of water around you, just to make sure there's enough water. And then over time, when you feel safe that you're never going to dehydrate potentially again, you'll just take water as and when you want it, right? That is what happens with food. And as dramatic as it sounds, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the base of everything is oxygen, water, and food. And so whether it's, quote, clean food, which people have also said to me, okay, let's like, I'm going with what you're saying, like food is a like basic human need, but I'm eating enough food, it's just clean food, so why can't I stop eating chocolate? And it's because of the restriction. Your body doesn't care. And this is where I created my own triangle, which I will put on my blog. Even though this isn't a blog, I've literally just wrote notes today, but I will put the pictures that I've been referring to as I've been talking about this on my blog. And so at the bottom of my hierarchy of food needs comes enough food. End of story. So regardless of the quality of the food, regardless of whether the food makes you sick. So some people say, you know, I have celiac disease, therefore I can't eat gluten. Yet knowing that it's really damaging to me and my health and how I feel physically, why the fuck am I binging on gluten when I know it's bad for me? And then of course you feel even worse about yourself. That is because if your body doesn't think it's getting enough, and this is key, so listen carefully, even if you're eating enough calories as far as you think you are, if you're restricting yourself amongst things you want to eat, your body senses an upcoming famine, because why would she not eat the food she wants? And if it's in the environment, therefore it must be being taken away from her. So regardless of the calories, your body doesn't think there's enough food, and it will send biological signals with your hormones to eat high fat, high sugar foods in abundance. Is it making sense? Right? And so at the very bottom of my triangle, your body needs to know that there is enough food regardless of the quality. The next level up, and that is, and only when you have enough food regardless of the quality, you then can go and progress to foods that you enjoy eating, such as your previous binge foods, right? So then I want you to incorporate this every day. So if chocolate was your binge food, if you work with me, your homework is to eat chocolate every day and send me photos of that. Even if you perhaps don't want it, which you will, this is just showing that it's safe and there's enough and there's always going to be chocolate there. And then from that place, and this is like where the health aspect comes in, which I've kind of jumped forward to myself, but never mind. From that place of like enough food, eating food you enjoy eating. So for example, the chocolate, and not only having it the weekend or because of not having it because of quote health or whatever, then you can go up to the next level, which is reliable ongoing access to enough food and foods that you enjoy. So the two's combined together. Your body needs to feel safe, that there is enough food in general, and no fear of an impending restriction of your previous binge foods. Only then can you progress to food variety because you feel safe to do so, meaning at this stage, this is where you start to experiment with eating a wider variety of foods in general, instead of perhaps only your binge foods or your safe or diet foods. And a great example for myself of this was I only ever knew diet shit or binge food. And so when I was in the allowance stage, I was, well, all of it's allowance, but the honeymoon stage of dieting, of food freedom, sorry, I would only eat my binge foods. But then when I knew that there was enough food in general, I was eating all the binge foods every day. So they no longer became binge foods. They just became delicious favorite foods. I was then able to be like, oh, forgot about cheese toasties with like onion chutney and salad. Or, oh, I forgot about jacket potatoes with cheese and beans and not just a plain jacket potato with no butter and beans and a big salad. Those things that are in between, you start to be able to feel like you actually want to choose those things, and you start to bring more variety in. And then, and only then, can you then progress to what some dietitians call gentle nutrition, if you want to. And so at this stage, you will start to want to choose foods naturally that make you feel good physically and emotionally. You are able to be flexible with your food choices, and you're motivated by nourishment and pleasure. And it's okay, and I still choose foods just for the pleasure. But let's be real, if you're hungry and you're fueling yourself at least 3 times a day with meals, I use the nourishment and pleasure to make my choices. So let's say we're talking about a cheese toastie. I've got fats in there from the cheese, carbohydrates from the bread, the sweet onion chutney for also extra carbohydrates, and a bit of onion, a bit of vegetables in there. Then I'll have a salad on the side and then eat it all together. And that's nourishing to my physical body. It's nourishing to my emotional and mental body as well, because I want to eat it. I'm excited to eat it. It's delicious and I feel satisfied and satiated. If I was to only eat, let's say chicken for, oh yeah, cheese is also the protein source in this meal. Let's say I was only to eat chicken or fake chicken if you're vegetarian, a plain baked potato and broccoli, you've still technically got the food groups in there. So you've got the fiber from the broccoli, whereas the cheese toastie was the salad, the fiber was from the salad. You've got the protein from the chicken, you've got the carbohydrates from the potato, we're missing a fat source. Let's say you allowed yourself some olive oil over your vegetables and you've got the fats from the olive oil. Now, may satisfy me physically because I've got my macronutrients needs met. Not going to satisfy me emotionally because I ain't having bland as fuck potato, plain chicken, and broccoli with olive oil on. No, it's not doing it for me, right? So can you see, you need to introduce pleasure and nourishment as a way to feed yourself overall for the rest of your life. But you can only get to the gentle nutrition part. You can only get to the quote health question with all of this food freedom stuff. And I love questions like, well, how is food freedom healthy? If you have any questions at any time, pop them below or send me a DM on Instagram. And I love creating episodes from questions. I really, really do. So please do that for me and for yourself if you want an answer. And so any more health questions, send them my way. But then only then, when you've gone all in and you're eating whatever you want, whenever you want, in any amount you want, seriously, this sounds too good to be true. It's not. This is what you'll be doing when you go all in. And like Stephanie Buttermore's journey, I think that's such a huge inspiration. A bit of a judgment from me recently, she seems to have also got smaller. And I mean, I have no comment. I don't know her life. I don't know if she's restricting or not. It doesn't look like she's restricting from the blogs that she does. I enjoy watching them. And this just comes back to set point weight. Like when you go all in and you eat all the food, whatever you want all the time, and you allow your mental hunger to guide you as well, because this is really key. Whenever you're thinking about food, eat. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but it's running into the fear and the anxiety of if you're like thinking about food, am I hungry? Am I not? Go and eat. Just eat food. And then your body will feel so safe that there's enough. What tends to happen in the all-in method, but not all the time, you might gain weight depending on where you are in your set point weight range at the moment. If you're underweight for your body, you're going to gain weight, which is a good thing. Sometimes, depending on how long you've restricted for, etc., you might overshoot your natural set point weight on purpose because your body knows what she's doing. It's a safety method. And over time, just like Stephanie Buttermore's journey, and just YouTube her if you don't know who she is, and you'll find it all about her. It was the episode with like millions of views, like my 1 year of all in or something like that. You'll find it. She gained weight and then she naturally lost weight, and then now she's at like a balanced set point weight where she eats whatever the fuck she wants. So she says, I don't actually know, but she's done a lot of scientific studies around this and it makes total sense to me. I was already in this before she launched this, but I've done this myself, and then this is what happened to me. I gained weight more than I am now. And then naturally, I've just ended up where I am because we all have our own set point weight. You don't gain weight forever and ever. You have a genetic code that will keep your body fat at a certain percentage. Like, please don't measure it ever, by the way. That's also like, you can't get accurate measures anyway, unless you're going to pay for like an MRI scan thing. And there's no reason anyway, because your body has got it covered. You have a hypothalamus in your brain that regulates body temperature, appetite, hormone regulation, body weight, etc. So your hypothalamus has got it covered. Leave it to do its job. It will send you appetite and cravings and fullness and hunger. If you just follow that, you can't go wrong. And so to get over your restrictive mindset, if you're eating from mental hunger, good, because naturally your body will drop any weight that is not within your set point weight range anyway, only if you don't go back to dieting. The more you diet, the more you'll raise your set point weight over time, and the fatter you'll be. Not that there's anything wrong with being fat. I say that word, like I've reclaimed that word. I'm not calling myself fat. Fat in the context of sociology. Yeah, sociology, I think, say the right word, is like plus size. So those that can't go into a normal shop and buy normal size clothes, which I hate to say the word normal, but plus size is considered fat. And people that call themselves fat, they don't say it as an insult. They're reclaiming that as a descriptive word, right, instead of plus size. So I don't even know where I was going with there, but whatever I said is what I've just said. And the next thing I wanted to say is, when you allow the all-in method and go all in, keep running towards your fear, turning it into courage, training your brain to not be scared of food and weight gain, you come to a place of food freedom. Ta-da! Here I am. food freedom, right? And this can be different stages for everyone. It can be very quick for some, like I'm talking like a few weeks, honestly, if they're fully all in, quote that saying, all in. If they're all in with everything I'm supporting them through, it can be very quickly discovered for them. What can happen though is you kind of start to miss, I did, the high of the obsession with food and the binge eating, and that feeling when you were going to allow yourself to get off the diet. I mean, sometimes my binges were unplanned, but towards the end, before I thought, fuck this, I can't do this anymore, a lot of them were planned binges. The excitement of going to the shop and getting all this food and like desperately wanting it for so long and then allowing yourself to have that, I missed that. Not now, but I missed that, the excitement and the liberation food gave me. I missed the high from that. But I tell you what, I would not trade it in for the mindset and the life and the restriction and the self-hate and all of everything that goes with the high that I got from food. And now I enjoy my favorite foods very much, chocolate, ice cream, pizza, but they don't bring quite the same pleasure as before because I'm no longer restricting. So they're just pleasurable, they taste delicious, but food's just a delicious part of life that you do look forward to, but not in the same way. So that is like the downside, if you like, of food freedom. I spoke about this before. And then what else did I have to, oh yeah, got so much for you today. Hold on, I needed another drink. So in terms of, I got very excited, I need to rein myself in. The pyramid that I shared with you, so the enough food, foods that you enjoy eating, reliable ongoing access to enough food and foods that you enjoy, food variety, gentle nutrition at the top. That is in alignment with my favorite mantra, allowance creates space for choice. So permission, enough food, allowance of all foods, create space for choice, whether that's health choices, nourishment choices, whatever that may be. You cannot get there until you've gone all in. And that is the truth. And so the stages of diet binge recovery with the all-in method is, or can be, again, I'll pop this image down below on the YouTube and link on the podcast to my website. You'll see what I'm talking about. Number one is the rebellious, and I like to call it the honeymoon stage of eating. That can look like saying fuck you to all the past diets and food rules you've ever been on. Good. It can be consuming copious amounts of your previous binge foods just because you can. Totally did that. And it can be eating for the sake of it just because you can. That is okay and necessary if that's what you're doing in this stage. However long you're in that stage for is however long you keep allowing physically and emotionally and going all in. You come to the second stage, which I like to call intuitive eating. And so intuitive eating can look like tuning into your body and tuning into your body and paying attention to your hunger and fullness without making them a rule again. Working with a hunger scale, but again, that can be turned into a number, like a diet kind of mindset rule. I must only eat when I'm hungry at this number, and I must stop when I'm full at this number. It can be eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full or had enough, eating what you fancy, sometimes overthinking it all and wondering if it's what your mind wants or if it's what your body wants. And sometimes feeling like even intuitive eating is all consuming. And that's why I'm not an intuitive eating coach, because it's so easy to turn intuitive eating into a diet. And so that's kind of like comes next naturally after the honeymoon stage of food freedom, of recovery from the diet binge cycle. The third stage of eating, which is where I am at, which is where true food freedom is, I call it intuition eating. So you're just fully trusting whatever feels right to you is what's best for you. And so if that's eating when you're not hungry because you want to, feels right, you do it, and you're so at peace with that decision. You get pleasure from food. Eating is easy and effortless. That's where I get my clients to. That's like the last stage, and that's where we stay in. And eating just becomes easy, pleasurable, and it's no biggie. But it's also a pleasurable part of life that you can get excited about, just not to the extremity as you did when you gave up dieting or you fell off the wagon and you was in the diet binge cycle. And then before I end this, I've spoken a little bit about set point weight. I want to share with you the stages to body love in concept of the stages I've just shared of food freedom, because the first stage when you start this work, because this is like addressing a little bit the fear of weight gain as well, which stops people from going all in, is the first kind of stage, and I haven't got a graphic for this yet, is hating the way your body looks. It's wondering if you'll ever accept your body, let alone love it. It's feeling uncomfortable in your body. It's feeling very aware of your body and any weight gain that you might experience. It's constantly longing for your previous body or a future fantasizing goal body. And you feel angry because you don't like your body, yet you know diets don't work, so you literally cannot change it. So there's a lot of anger there. The second stage, and again, this doesn't have to take very long. It usually takes a little bit longer than the food freedom. So I would say more towards the end of 8 weeks to other than like a matter of a few weeks. So it can be quicker, but I would say average about 8 weeks. You start to experience a little, instead of anger, you start to experience frustration because again, you just wish you could diet successfully, but you know you can't. It's just a bit of frustration left there. You experience body acceptance. You deeply surrender and accept your body. Even though you don't like the way it looks, you accept it. There's no more resistance. There's no more struggle. It is what it is. You also start to feel a deep appreciation for your body. Your body's pretty awesome. Like you have a tongue that gives you taste buds to enjoy food. You have arms that allows you to hug your loved ones. You have a body, you have muscles, you can work out if you want to. You start to feel appreciative of the body you have. And then sometimes you long for your previous body or fantasize about your goal body, but there's only sometimes. It's definitely not as much as it was, but it does come from time to time. It makes you a little bit sad when you feel that. The third and kind of final body stage of like body love that I have experienced, I am in, and I teach my clients to get to, is contentment tends to come first. You're content, so it's a deeper level of acceptance. If I could put that feeling into words, it would be like, you know what? My body makes me me. I've got big legs, got cellulite, I've got a smaller waist, got big arms, I'm shorty, I'm 5'2", got big boobs, got long hair. Kind of like makes me who I am. And kind of like I'm fine with all of who I am, my flaws and all, right? That can come in the third stage. And then you experience a deep, delicious level of deep surrender and acceptance and unconditional love for your body. Unconditional love for your body. And that is indescribable. If you have children, it's a love you'd feel for your children towards your body. If you have pets and you love your pet very much, then similar, but deeper, even deeper. It's a sense of being in your body and accessing feelings of sexiness and confidence and all of those things that we think we have to look a certain way to feel. You're accessing and experiencing those in your body. You're not seeing your body as an object, a billboard, a sexual walking fantasy for men, because by Summer Innanen's quote, you weren't born to give men boners, because you weren't. I love that quote. Occasionally, very occasionally in this stage, you might have fleeting thoughts or desire to be in a smaller body. You might see an old photo or whatever, but it doesn't really stay for long at all, and it doesn't cause you any distress. It's just like the feeling of, it'd be nice to have more money. And then that's kind of it, right? Oh, if I had more money, this is what I would do. But the beautiful thing is, if you're like, if I was in a smaller body, this is what I'll do. You can actually do that now. That's the beautiful thing. Like compared to money, you probably, if you wanted more money and you'd be like, oh, if I had more money, I would buy a house in Hawaii. Couldn't do that with the money you have now. But if you're like, would love to be in a smaller body because then I would wear that bikini on the beach in Mexico. You can actually do that. You just need probably some coaching to be confident enough and to know you're enough to go and do that in the body you have. So in this stage also, there's more in this stage, yay. You feel proud of your body. You feel proud of your body and yourself for standing up for who you are and for other women's empowerment and their freedom to be themselves. Strong, authentic women do not suppress their natural body size. And that is you. That can be you. So you feel very proud of the journey you've been on. And you may not love the way your body looks, but you love your body unconditionally. You feel proud. You feel a sense of being in your body. So you can experience the gift of your body, not instead of objectifying it. You experience unconditional love. You experience contentment. And you can also experience body positivity as well in this stage. And that is looking in the mirror and being like, you know what, I like the way my body looks. And that's amazing. And I've experienced that too. And I often experience it most days because we attract what we believe about ourselves. So when you've done all the work to heal your relationship with food and with yourself, and you've rewired your brain and all of that, you're then opening the possibilities to believe other things. So if you have done all that work and you just send love to your body, you start to like the way your body looks as well. It's like so amazing how this happens. But then when you do like the way your body looks, it doesn't really mean anything anymore. It doesn't mean much. I mean, of course, we still want to like do our makeup if that's important to you, do your hair, wear nice clothes. That's okay. I'm not saying that you need to stop taking care of yourself, whatever that means to you, but you start to like the way you look anyway when you've done this work, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's amazing. And so the last thing I wanted to talk about is the fear of weight gain, which will stop people from going all in. Again, not going to go in depth. I have like many podcasts about weight gain specifically, but a question I feel is coming to mind. Do you choose to stay where you are now in the mindset you have, with the food rules you have, potentially with the binging, with the purging, just surviving life, having a few good times and whatever, potentially in a smaller body or the body you have now? Or do you choose true, absolute food freedom, eating whatever the hell you want, when you want, in any amount you want, and genuinely, honestly choosing nourishing things because you want to, and feeling so good in your body and so confident and so accepting of who you are, but potentially not be living in your dream body, but that not mattering anymore? Which do you choose? And again, I've said this quote many times, but I'm going to say it again. You can diet until you die, because you've got to keep dieting, because diets don't work unless you keep sticking to them long term. So you can diet until you die, or you can heal your relationship with food and your body. Both are hard. Only one is worth it. And I know which one I've chosen. You know which one I've chosen. This is why I teach this, because it's so damn good. I cannot just keep this to myself. And so I want to leave you with 2 words. Well, I'm going to say more after that, but trust and surrender. Surrender and trust. So when you go all in, if you want support through this, which I would recommend, reach out to me or someone else that you trust who's been through the journey that you want to go through and who is on the other side where you want to be. That's important, I believe. I have qualifications, psychology, coaching, nutrition, but honestly, it's my own experience that really enables me to help my clients so powerfully. So if you go all in and surrender and trust the process, and more importantly, trust your body, trust your hypothalamus that has been around since humans have been around, so however long that is. It knows what it's doing. Just follow your cravings, your desires, your hunger, your fullness, your satiety, your everything. Tune in, trust your body, surrender to that, and you'll be there. All right, beauties. I can't believe I've been talking for nearly an hour. Well, I can. That's a lie. Can believe it. Any questions at any time, reach out to me. Sending you all so much love. I'll see you next time. Bye.